Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Daughter Dears podcast. I'm Simone Canego,
And I'm Olivia Canego.
and today we are going to be talking about adulting. We all know this is a podcast that
Ooh.
where we talk about, we have authentic conversations about things that sometimes we think about, but we don't want to talk about out loud. And maybe adulting is one of them. So that's what we're
God,
doing
no one,
today.
they like say it's hard. Some things that I expected to be hard are really easy, and the things I expected to be easy are really hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about being an adult. Now, what's really funny is going back in history, like this was not a term when I was growing up. You would become an adult, okay? It was a noun. There was not a verb associated with it. And actually, I did some research on it, which I think you probably saw, which I thought was very, very interesting. So,
Yeah.
in 2015, the word adulting was the word of the year in the American Dialect Society. Um, it was 2015's most creative construction,
Hmm.
which is okay. That's interesting, right? Okay, so that's 2015, right?
I mean, yeah,
2015
because the word
adulting.
adult has been around, I mean, longer than 2015. I couldn't tell you. I'm not an English major, so.
Yeah, but and then there's even more research on it. So if you look back in history, they traced the currently hot usage, which is so there's two definitions. One, to behave in an adult manner, engage in activities associated with adulthood, or two, to make someone behave like an adult, turn someone into an adult. So they looked back through all posts in history. Yeah, people actually do that. They kind of do all their research and they found that there was a definition from a tweet back in 2008. Did Twitter exist? No. Why is it called a tweet? I don't even know.
What do you
So
mean? Twitter definitely existed back
in
in 2008.
2008, when did it
Now I
start?
have to look.
Okay, you look while I talk. So, I guess if it says it's a tweet, it had to have been Twitter, right? So,
Yeah, the
grew up
word didn't
grew
exist
up in a
before.
town of 2K and adulted 10 years in New York City. Same values, keeping the job, feeding the family, educating the kids, buying the stuff. So that was from 2008 and credit to Unholy Twerp at
And
Unholy Twerp.
oh, that's so funny. I love Twitter names. I think they're funny. Twitter was actually founded. Well, the first tweet was sent out March 21st, 2006, and then the
Mm,
completed version debuted in July 2006.
okay,
So
so
yeah,
there you
2
go.
years.
Yeah, so it was Twitter. So which is interesting that people actually have done research on this to figure out when it started.
Well,
So the first
just
the
a
first time it
sidetrack
was
there
used
though.
as okay, go ahead.
Twitter, like they of course like it's like its own culture on there, like in terms if it was like it could be a whole society. It's just people online rather than people in person. But from like an anthropology perspective, holy crap, there is so much knowledge just on that platform. And it's so unique to just that platform that it's, I don't know, kind of makes sense that words that we use in our everyday come from there.
Okay. So, I mean, when you think about it, that word, obviously, there's many words that we've taken from a noun into a verb, right?
I like this
Parent,
example in here. Yeah,
yeah.
parenting. I wouldn't even think of like parenting is not a real word at one point. Like adulting wasn't a real word, but parenting, I guess, also wasn't. That's crazy.
And Googled, right? Google was a noun, Google was a thing, right? And we turned it into a verb. I Googled it. Okay. So,
Well,
yes,
like
we can,
we
yeah,
Ubered.
we Ubered,
Even if you
you know.
used a Lyft, you Ubered.
Yeah, it should have been
You
I
lifted.
took an Uber and yeah, you didn't lifted. That's weird.
Nah.
But I don't know, maybe it will become something, although Uber still sounds better.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
agree.
Lyft. Sorry about that. But it's actually kind of fascinating, just like how it became an actual verb, or not how, because we don't know how it became, but it's just like anything else. You use it enough, and I say it to the kids all the time. I was like, are you ready to adult? Like, do you want to adult today?
Like, no.
And no, nobody wants to adult. But so I did some more research, shocker, and it's very interesting. And they said that the reason the word is so popular now is because it has to do with millennials. And it has to do with the
Hmm.
fact that millennials go through these kinds of changes much later in life than we used to, right? So
Okay.
things that and I'm not saying that you don't do all the things, but I mean, I got married at 21. I mean,
Yeah, I did not.
right? Yeah. Well, you're not
I'm not
21,
even
but
21, but I will not be.
yeah. So, you know, the things that have changed, like right now, the age of first-time mothers is indeed at a historic high of 26.
That's
Okay.
crazy.
Which is crazy to think that that's a historic high is
Well, yeah,
26 years old.
that's the crazy part is the historic high.
Right. And that first-time home buyers are more likely to be older and single today than in past decades. So,
It's expensive to buy a home.
well, it is. A lot of things have
I
changed.
think
It's
it takes longer to become our definition of what an adult is. I think
mm.
before early 20s made you an adult. And I think even throughout your 20s now, you're still a young adult and trying to figure out life. There's more of that leeway.
Well, and the term adult is actually kind of confusing because let's think about it for a second. So, when you're 18, you can vote, you can serve in the army, but you can't drink alcohol, right? When you're
Yeah.
16, at least in Florida, when you're 15, you can get your driver's permit. When you're 16, you can drive. And
Yeah.
then when you're 21 is when you can drink alcohol. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like
Like
it's a very
what?
interesting thing. Like what age is really an adult?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's 18 or 21. I hope it's not. I don't feel like an adult yet. I mean,
You're
I don't even,
adulting in
in my
some way,
head, I'm
shape, or
still
form.
16. And I think like most people in their 20s think that they're like still in their teens. I don't know. Like I'm adulting, I guess. But would I consider myself? I'm a young adult. I'm not a full
There we
adult
go. There
yet.
we go. I mean, you can say that at 18 that you're legally considered an adult, but good luck with that. I mean, imagine
Yeah.
at 18 if I said, "Bye-bye, figure it out."
Yeah.
How would that go?
Terrible. God, awful. But
Some people have to do that though. I mean, many people have to do that. Many people have
100%.
to completely be adulting at 18 years old because their parents aren't supporting them. Their parents, well, maybe they can't financially support them, but hopefully they're supporting them in a, emotional way. But for
Yeah.
some people, that doesn't exist at all. So they're really
Yeah.
on their own, maybe even way before 18. So, but when we think about adulting in general, yeah, it's hard. It is like,
I think one of the reasons, especially as like a new adult, I would say it comes off as hard is because the entire idea around being an adult is that you have this new sort of independence and whether that's bad or good. And I think people tend to be like, well, I'm independent now. I have to be independent. I have to make all the decisions by myself. But the idea of it takes a village expands far past just raising a child. I feel like I don't know. I check everything with either you or someone else in my life because I don't know, like being independent, it's great, but you need a support team as well.
yeah, it actually goes back to what we were talking about on the last episode of
Yeah.
the concept of self-made. Like it's really hard to do everything on your own. And yeah, some people have to, but
Yeah.
so many
And
pitfalls with that.
those people need to give themselves a break. And like
Mhm.
once they find their people, just take a moment because I don't know. I couldn't imagine living life entirely by myself.
Well, part of being human is asking for help, right?
100%.
I mean, you can't,
I was
I
just,
say you can't do it by yourself, but you can. It's just so, so difficult. Life is difficult enough. Adulting is difficult enough. Like, use your support system.
100%. I think it's so important. And I don't know. People I think feel bad. I've been listening to a lot of things recently. Like people feel bad calling upon their support system, but that's what they're there for. And also vice versa. Like if someone called upon you, you wouldn't feel like, oh, why are they doing that? It's more of like, oh, like of course I'll help.
Yeah. It's one of those things, though, I can tell you, even recently with Ari's surgery, I've had people say, well, can I bring something over? Can I do something? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And maybe I kind of regret that actually, but I
Yeah,
feel,
like if someone's gonna offer to make you dinner, like let them make you dinner.
I know, I know, I know. But it's like one of those hard things too.
Yeah,
Except part of adulting is realizing at 51, realizing when I actually need help and I should just say
there's no
yes,
shame in
right?
asking for help.
No. And there's no shame in accepting help. Like, forget
Nope.
even asking for it. Like, people are going to offer it to you. Say yes. So,
Yeah, I mean, most people don't just like offer things willy nilly.
yeah. So, okay, let's go back to this adulting piece. So,
Okay.
okay, being in your early 20s, you're in your early 20s, can sometimes feel like being a baby again. You're thrust out of school and into a job, well, you're not thrust out of school yet, but another
Yeah,
year and
it
you will
feels
be.
like it right now.
Yeah, out of your parents' house and into an apartment, and suddenly responsible for understanding concepts like renter's insurance and credit scores. It's easy to get overwhelmed and shut down, putting off adulting until you're closer to your 30, until you're 30, which they're saying that that's an issue. You don't want to put off adulting. You want to kind of jump in and
Ooh,
figure it out.
I agree with the jump in, but and figure it out. Don't wait until you're 30. But I definitely think it's a transition thing. Like I'm in my transition years of becoming
Mm,
adult. Yeah, because I still have people financially supporting me. Yes, do I? A lot of the purchases I make are of my own doing. Like
hmm
my groceries, I predominantly some once in a while be like, I don't have money. Can you pay for them?
yeah.
But it's a good for me at least right now. It's a good balance of okay, like you're never going to be on the streets, obviously, regardless of like my you pay my rent, you pay for my school, and then you help me out at then other things when needed. But I don't think I could just like jump right in,
No.
like go from living in your house and doing school out of your house to being like, okay, well, you're in New York now. See you later.
Yeah, and again, like I said, some people do have to do that.
Yeah,
So
and I
that's a much harder
this
transition,
is
right?
what we were talking about earlier, maybe not like a long earlier ago, like a long time earlier ago. Of maybe dad said this. He was like, you and your mom should like make a book of things that you should know as an adult.
Mm. Well,
Like
it's
renter's
interesting you say
insurance.
that. There's tons of books out there that are called adulting, how to adult, adulting for dummies. Like there's hilarious books
Yeah.
out there, and there's an app which we're going to talk about in a
Oh,
minute.
that's
But
funny.
here's an interesting one, and there's probably more than one app. There's one that I found. So this is this is a really interesting thing of why it's important to like jump in some respect, not completely, but um, Dr. Meg Jay, author of The Defining Decade, argues 80% of life's most defining moments take place by about age 35. And two-thirds of lifetime wage growth happens during the first 10 years of a career.
Hearing
Personality
that
can
makes me want
change.
to throw up.
Personality can change more during our 20s than at any other decade in life.
I was literally just thinking, like 5 minutes before we started this podcast, I was like, who am I right now? Like, would I have recognized me from 5 years
Mm,
ago? I don't think so.
no, I wouldn't I mean, I recognize you because, I know
Well,
you,
yeah,
but yes.
but
Yeah.
and then I was thinking of all my different friends that I have because I had a friend reach out to me that I haven't seen in a couple of years that's saying she's going to be in New York. And I was like, yeah, I part of me still gets along with her, but like with the part of me that gets along with my college friends get along with her. It's an
You know what?
interesting balance.
Well, it is, but that's part of being a grown up is you have to figure out how to make all of that work. So people
Yeah.
that you might have been friends with a long time ago, you have to figure out how to be able to integrate them into your life now. And they might not be your closest friends, but you don't just
There's still
blow them
people,
off.
yeah, and I
Yeah,
still have great memories with them.
yeah. And you still want to see how it works out. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not saying that they're going to hang out with your roommates or hang out with your friends, but your current friends, but it's still worth having that relationship because this is actually one of the things that I have a whole list of things that of why things are important. And this actually goes back to follow the golden rule. The world is smaller than you think. Even if your roommate or your boss makes you feel like a cartoon character with steam coming out of your ears, resist the urge to be rude, gossip about them online, or jump ship without warning. Instead, focus on building rapport. Not only is being kind the right thing to do, it can also help pave the way to future ease in your life, since you never know when people from your past will pop up at a party or job interview down the road. Treat everyone like you might be trapped in an elevator with them tomorrow. And I thought that was really great advice. As you see, I mean, most people won't see my shirt, but kind people are my kind of people.
That's
Um,
cute.
Thank you. It's new. But I mean, I love that statement. Treat everyone like you might be trapped in an elevator with them tomorrow, right? Like,
I think I could be trapped with most people in an elevator.
but it's also making you think about your decisions, right? So if you decide to be a complete asshole to somebody, like you're going to regret that later, because if you run into a situation where they're standing there and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what do I
Yeah.
say to them?"
Yeah.
So it's always better to take the higher ground. And that's hard when you're in this in between stage. I can look back at things when I was younger and say, "I wish I wouldn't have said that," or "I wish I wouldn't have done
Yeah.
that." And now it's
And
different because everything's on video. So like you really wish
well,
you wouldn't have said
that
it.
exactly. Which is why like I that my thought before that was if you're gonna say something or think something like and want to put it online, would you say that to your person's face? And not even being like if you are too afraid to confront the person like face to face or like yeah,
Mm,
then it's probably not something you want to say online because it's not something you feel like entirely confident in yet. And it
absolutely.
just emotions get read so terribly over text. It's quite honestly one of the worst ways to communicate.
Yeah, I mean, we all like it because it's easy, right? We
It's
can
efficient.
I can send a text right now even while we're talking and have something happen that I needed to happen, but taking making a phone call takes time. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. And a lot of people don't like phone calls anymore. So I realized the best thing to do is text somebody and ask for a call or email
Yes.
them and ask for a call because
I
if you just
think
call, nobody
no,
answers
no one
anymore.
because well, I think that like this dad does that, which is fine, but he always calls me during work hours. And I was like, you also work 9 to 5. I don't know what you're doing right now, but yeah.
He's
I
waiting
think
for the
always
operating room to turn over.
general rule of thumb is like, can we schedule time for a call or like do you have time for a quick call?
Right.
Uh just because you net like I don't know, I could be in the bathroom the moment that you decide to call. I could have
Yeah.
just yeah, like
It's an adult thing to actually ask for an appointment, to ask
yes.
for a time instead of, and it's funny, the other day I called your brother. I called your older brother, and he's like, "You know you're calling me and I'm at work." And I was like, "I know, I just needed 2 minutes of your time." And I kind of laughed at myself because I was like,
My
"Yeah, I could have waited
God.
later," but I was like, I needed to get it done right at that
Yeah,
moment. And,
yeah.
it was just, but it was really funny. It was like, I'm at work. I'm like, yes, I know, but I'm calling you anyways. So, but yes,
I
I think
like
an
phone
adulting thing
calls.
is you do like phone calls?
I like phone calls the way okay. The way I got over my anxiety from doing it is I put it on speaker instead of holding it next to my ear. And I don't know, for
Hmm.
some reason that's just talking out loud. I like it because anytime I call, just gets done. I don't have to wait like customer service. If I call, it gets done. Like when I need
It's
to order my meds and I'm having difficulties online, messaging back and forth with the robot's not going to do anything. Yes, waiting in line for the call to finally go through sucks. But most of the time, it's entirely worth it because, oh, okay, that's an easy fix.
hmm
Yeah.
it's true. I mean, actually, when I was looking up things like you wish you would have known as you were as a teen and then coming into your adult years, one of them was how to make a phone call. And
Yes.
I think that's especially true now. Like, okay, from my day, that's all we had was a phone. So, like, you
Hmm.
wanted to get anything done, you either had to show up in person or you had to make a call. But now, kids don't do that, right? Like, I'll be like, make a call. They're like, oh no, we don't do that. We don't talk to each other like that. I'm like, that is the weirdest thing ever. Well, guess what? When you get into the real world, you will have to actually communicate with people face to face or on a
Yeah.
phone call. Yes, there's a lot of email, there's a lot of text, but still, you got to know these kinds of skills and being able to know how to call someone and ask the questions,
Hmm.
whether it's customer service or an interview, or there's so many different things that are involved in a phone call and a Zoom, right?
Yeah.
There's so many
Zoom
parts to that, which
etiquette. But
is
I think actually, I was going to say my generation should know that. But recently, through these large webinars that we do at work, I'm realizing like people do not know Zoom etiquette of you mute your camera or you mute your mic. Like if that one is the most annoying to me.
yeah. And that's my, I
I don't
mean,
know
that's not
why.
just your age, that's my age too. I'm like, the first thing I do is when we get on to like a group call, people will say hello, I say hello, and then I mute
Yeah,
because
I make sure I'm muted. I'm so scared of not being muted.
right. I don't need anybody to hear the dogs barking or someone ringing the
Even
doorbell
my
or disrupting the.
breathing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, that's actually probably one of the most annoying things to me on Zoom calls. Like everything else, I do have trouble with like sharing the screen, whatever, but like being not muted when you should be muted is crazy.
Yeah. And that's kind of an
I find
adulting
it
moment.
cringy.
Yeah, well, it's an adulting moment, but I would say that most adults still struggle with that. And maybe more so older adults than younger adults. And you
Yeah.
tell me because we're not used to it. I mean, I'm used to it now, but when you see older adults trying to do these things, like it's stuff that they had never experienced before
Yes,
COVID. And all of a sudden,
exactly.
everything has to be like, you got to push this button, you got to push this button. There's multiple steps, and they're like, I could do one step.
But for college kids my age, I mean, we all had to do that year online. I don't know any college that did in-person classes,
Yeah,
the like all in-person classes my freshman year, whenever 2020 go, yeah, 2020.
2020. Yeah.
So I don't know where this like concept of not knowing Zoom. Ugh, I could ramble about this forever. So yeah, part of being adult, phone etiquette, Zoom etiquette, person
Yeah.
skills, but I don't think these are things. I mean, like obviously Zoom etiquette and phone etiquette, you can teach them, but knowing how to have a phone call and knowing how to ask someone for something at work or have a conversation, that's a learned skill, not like a taught skill.
Oh, I agree. I think a lot of this is all learned skills. So there was and I don't have the name of the survey, but according to a 2021 survey of recent U.S. college grads, 81% wished they were taught more life skills before they graduated. After years of following a syllabus, there are few instructions for how to get your act together outside the confines of a classroom or your parents' home. So 81%. So I actually think about this a lot, like why we don't do this in high school and why we don't do this in college. Now, we do some kind of life skills in high school these days, but you tell
We should
me.
bring back
I
home
mean,
ec, bro.
great. I
Literally
mean,
no,
and
like,
home ec for all. It's not like it's not
yeah, home
like
ec
the
for all.
sewing goes to the women and the car repair goes to the men. Like teach some basic skills, how to change a tire,
Yeah.
how to sew a button. Yes, you can call AAA, but learn how to make the phone call to call
Yeah.
AAA.
Well, what if, yeah, no, I think just like learning how to cook, which that's part of being an
Mm,
adult that I love cooking, but having to feed myself every single day sucks. Like
yeah.
that is actually exhausting. Like after this, I'm thinking, oh, I'll probably just have ramen for dinner, like microwave ramen.
Yeah, well, when I was in college, I had Kraft mac and cheese. That was my thing.
It's the time to eat it.
Yeah, it was
It's
99 cents
fine.
back then. I don't
Oh
think it's
well,
gone up
I
that
don't
much,
think.
maybe like $1.50 or something.
Yeah, it's don't. I don't think it's 99 cents though.
No, it's not 99 cents. But
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, there's definitely like things that you realize once you are out on your own, like it's a pain. Cooking,
managing
planning.
money.
Okay, well, yes, managing money. So, okay, let's talk about that and then we'll go back to food. But
Yeah,
understanding that being able to figure out a budget based on whether it's what you're earning or the amount that your parents are giving you, whatever it is,
yeah,
figuring out how to make that last over the month. And
yeah.
that can be really difficult.
It
So
sucks.
it's creating a basic budget. And
Like
then
I totally went over budget this weekend, and I'm thinking, oh shit, like what am I gonna have to cut back on during the week? And which is probably why I'm gonna eat
eating
ramen.
ramen, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, ramen's still it's a hell of a deal,
I got it on
honestly.
sale.
Oh, that's an
I
even
got it on
better
hella
deal.
sale.
Yeah, but so when you make money, it's one of those hard things where you're like, oh my gosh, I have all this money. I can spend it. I can go buy these shoes. I can go do this. And then you
Yeah.
don't think about, wait, like if I do that, then in 2 weeks, I'll have no money to eat.
Yeah, so I actually have extreme anxiety over money, and like regardless if I have money in my bank account or not, I don't know why I hate making
Mm,
purchases over $100. Totally sure. Even if it's an essential thing, I can't do it. It freaks me out to the max, even if I have the
mm.
money to do it. So I think that's definitely helped me. I've been weirdly enough, my friends are all finance. I've been giving them like financial advice recently. Not really though, but like
Should I
being
ask
like,
what the advice is?
yeah, you it's
Don't
like
spend your money.
no, my friends were like, okay, well, like I hate my credit card. Which credit card should I get? And I was like, oh, like I have one. I get a good cash back rate. It's good for students. And then we're talking about savings, and I love my savings account. It's through Amex. It's a high yield savings.
Mm,
It's just like easy passive income. And I would say majority of my friends, they have parents with accounts at Amex, and you don't even need one. I think an account at Amex to open the savings there. I was like, guys, like you need to be using your credit card benefits. That I've really gotten into
mm.
that. I love because it's just free perks. I get free Uber One 10% cash back on Ubers. That's awesome. And then just like investigating whether like you can open a savings account with that one or like what airline perks that you can get. And I do think like my understanding of that finance comes from me just being so stressed about it that I've just been like, okay, well, I have to learn then.
So I think that's a really a few really good points, but let's start back a little bit. So
Yeah.
a credit card is important to build credit, right? That's the
Yup.
whole goal of when you're
Capital One Savings
younger.
Rewards. That's what I have.
Yeah, yeah.
Great
So I
card.
mean, but to be able to build your credit so that later in life you have a good credit score so that if you want to buy a home or you whatever you want to buy a
Literally
car,
anything, I think.
but something that we don't really talk about that much. I mean, we do with the kids because we know like how important it is to have it for later. But when I was younger, it wasn't a discussion of, building your credit.
And I still don't really understand what credit is. Like, I know that I need it, and I know I need to have a
Hmm.
good score, and I know that I have a good score because I pay off my bill every month. Um, which you should do if you do that. That
Yeah,
the
that's
idea of
another
credit
thing.
card debt makes me want to throw up. Um, but like besides that, no clue. Like I know why, but I don't understand it, and I don't think other countries have it.
I don't know about that. I kind of
Huh.
feel like they might. I've
Okay.
never I've never investigated it, but I kind of feel like I mean, every country has a way, not every. I have no idea. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I
But
have no.
a
I
way
mean,
to borrow money, and they have to have something to judge it against to be able to borrow money. And that's what your credit score is here. It kind of shows that how well have you paid back the things that you already have outstanding. Compare that to the income that you're making. And that's really those kinds of things give you a higher credit score. And blips in the past, sometimes they take a while to get off of your credit, but
yeah,
it's important that you just keep going and you keep trying to pay everything off. A lot of people will put a ton on their credit card. And the worst thing you can do is put a ton on your credit card because the interest rates on a credit card are like 20 to 25%. Some of them are lower, but like these are
I think
crazy
I'm
rates.
zero.
Can you imagine? Well, it would only be zero right at the beginning. I don't know.
Oh,
You have to look
okay,
at it.
that's
You have to
fair.
look at the
I mean, I
fine
paid
line.
off in entirety. Like,
So if you pay it off every 30 days, so if you pay it off by the due date, you won't have a fee and you won't have interest accumulating. But if you don't, potentially, if you spend $1,000 on something and you didn't pay it off for a year, you could potentially owe $1,200 on it. Like
yeah,
that's
Ugh,
crazy,
that's
right?
disgusting.
So
So freaky.
yeah. And so I think it's so important that that's one of the things that parents talk about with their kids about adulting, that the idea of a credit card, and it's not free money, right? It costs a lot of money. And you can't just say, oh, I'm not going to pay it. It kills your credit. If you
Yeah,
have to declare bankruptcy or, however you're going to do it to not pay your credit card, it kills your credit. And then it affects you for
the rest of your life.
forever.
And it doesn't just affect you, it affects your partner, it affects your kids, it affects literally anyone that you have like a legal relationship with by the government. Like they're messed up for the rest of their lives essentially too.
I don't know how much it affects your kids as if they're on your
Well,
credit
oh, I
cards.
guess yeah.
Yes, but
But
it
like
does
in
affect
terms
your
of
yeah, it affects the like okay, if I have horrible credit, I could never buy a house, so you wouldn't have a house to live in. So from that
that,
respect, yes, but
and then like your debt, if you know, like if you don't pay off your this is my understanding, if you don't pay off your debt, depending on the debt, by the time you
mhm,
die, your debt
you
either
get
gets passed to your spouse or your kids, depending on
yes,
who's
it
alive.
does. It
Which
does.
is, oh my God,
Now
like
there's certain restrictions like so if I think credit cards that doesn't happen. You can like say this person passed away, I'm not taking
yeah,
over their debt, but other things no, you're responsible for
like
and
medical debt.
that can
Mm-mm,
really affect you negatively. I don't know all the details of that. I'm not a financial planner, but
I'm not either.
my advice is pay off the credit card. Really, I mean that's key. And
And start a
the other thing
savings.
is yeah, start a savings because you guys have all started putting money
In a
in a
Roth.
in an
And I have,
IRA.
yeah, so I have a personal savings, which I should probably actually move money over there. Um, and then I
Yeah,
have my
if you
Roth.
the interest rates are so high right now for savings accounts. Like I've seen tons of things for short-term CDs, but also, an Amex savings account. There's other
4% right
banks
now,
that
I
have,
think.
yeah, 4%. So you can leave it in your checking account and it can just sit there, or you can earn 4%. And you don't realize how quickly that adds up.
Yeah.
So even if it's like five Starbucks, it's five Starbucks, right? Like
Yeah, I
that's the
don't
way I
know.
think
I've
about it.
made, I think, $300 on my savings account just from it sitting in there.
Yeah. I called my internet company, my internet TV company, And like they don't have any special deals for me right now. I've been a customer for too long. I kind of feel like I should drop it and then start over and see if I could get a special deal. But they're like, oh, we'll give you a loyalty discount of $25 a month. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I was like, well, $25 a month, that's really like 4 to 5 Starbucks. So like if you look
Yeah.
at it from that perspective, like every dollar
Every dollar does count.
matters. Yeah.
I mean,
And
but be like, so it's such a hard balance because, like, go out and enjoy your life. You're in your 20s, do the experiences that you want to do, but make sure in the end of the day that those experiences aren't absolutely destroying your chance for the future.
yeah,
So,
and I
yes,
think
I went over budget this weekend, definitely, but I had such an amazing time the both nights that I went out and the both days that I went out that I don't regret it. And I know that I'll be able to make it up.
yeah, and so yes, there are absolutely times that you should do that. We do it all the time. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, spent over budget. But there are things that I wouldn't take back and there are memories that I have forever. But I think the idea of saving money and understanding, like if you put money away today, the amount it's going to be worth in 40 years from now is
Yeah.
gigantic, right? I mean, that's the whole point. And I wish I would have done that more. My parents put money away for me, but then I used it when we bought a house. And so there's stuff I shouldn't have touched because it would have
Hmm.
been worth a lot of money today. But
Yeah.
I didn't really understand it. And that's, I hope that you guys understand more about leaving it, whatever we give to you, you leave it in there and you leave it in there until you retire because then, you'll have a lot of money.
Yeah, it's
So,
just like something that's not even thought of. I mean, like obviously I think about retirement, but I know that's there and I mean, I don't know what else I would spend it on. Like I don't think of it as my money. Yeah, and I know like in the end of the day it will be eventually, but it's not money that I like count into my budget.
right.
Like don't count, yeah.
Yeah, you don't think about that. I think another thing that is important is, and I read this as well, but I think back to, my history to understand the difference between a job and a career. So when you first
Yup.
finish college, the idea of committing yourself to something for ever, you don't know what you want. I mean, I'm finally at 51. I know what I want. I know what I like to do. But to know what you want at 21, 22, 23 years old, that's really difficult. So understand that when you get that first job, it's a first job and figure out
Yeah.
if you love it. Like, don't say to yourself, like, okay, this is the end. This is the end. This is what I'm going to have to do for the rest of my life. I think that we've become a little bit more flexible these days
I think
where,
so.
yeah, where you can kind of look at it and say, this is a good first job, but this is not what I want to be doing for my career. And kind of expand on that and see, ask yourself the questions of what do I like? What do I want to do? Where
Hmm.
do I think I'm going to make the biggest difference? All those kinds of things where instead of just saying, oh, I got this job, I have to stay with it forever. And you see a lot of people who do that and then they're miserable. They are miserable. And understanding that, give yourself some grace to take a look and see, like, okay, I got this job at 21. I think I'm going to stay until 23. And these are the things I'm looking at. I'm not saying go, and I say this all the time, don't go quit your job tomorrow, but kind of look at all of the
Yeah.
things that are available to you so that you can make an informed decision of how you want to do things.
I was on a great webinar today, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's like against rules. But it was with Karamo from Queer Eye, and he was talking about his career experience. And obviously now he's a celebrity. He has his own show. He has Queer Eye. He's hosted a bunch of different things. I think he has a book as well. So now he's super successful. But he was talking about his journey there and not to play the comparison game because yeah, your friend might get their dream job right out of college, but that's simply not the case for majority of people.
Mm.
And yeah, your friend might be making the 100K right off of college, but that's just not how most people work. um and it takes the time to find things, but all of the experience that you have, they build up, and they all count regardless if they're different or not.
Yeah. And when I was younger, when I was going into college, it was you had to decide right away what you wanted to do. And I know a lot of times we still have to commit to a major.
Yeah.
It's okay to change your mind. I think the worst thing you can do is continue on with something that you don't like just because you feel like you have to. And in my case, I mean, I love my parents, but they were kind of like, this is what you committed to. And I was like, yeah, but I don't like this.
Yeah.
And it actually took me failing a class for me to be able to kind of switch what I was doing. Whether I regret it or not doesn't really matter. But I it was a really hard thing to have my parents say, like, well, you committed to this, you need to follow through. And I agree. When you commit to something, you should follow through, but not when it's going to change the entire trajectory of your life and you're not happy about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I always I am a big fan of saying it's okay to change your mind when it comes to your career. I've changed my mind 15 times probably of what I've done, and I found different pieces of satisfaction within each change. But overall, I think the most important thing was when I figured out, what am I passionate about? What do I really love doing?
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people never get to that point because they feel so stuck in what they're doing. They can't even think about the next level.
I agree. Yeah. Right now I'm not gonna lie, like I'm very stressed about my career future, and I'm hearing all the advice given to me, and it's essentially all the same thing, which is like you're not gonna have it figured out right away. It's okay if you graduate without a job, you're gonna find one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's still, I think it's the cost of living that is
Mm.
overwhelming me the most right now. Um, but I have like managed to take this step recently to think of like this is just a job for me, this internship. It's not necessarily actually at all what I want to do. I mean, there are certain parts of it that I really like, but it's not it's like entertainment's not the field that I'm dying to be in. Ad sales is not what I'm dying to do in the end of the day. But right now, it's a great thing on my resume.
And it's a great learning experience. I think the more you
100%.
experience, the more that you understand about the world around you. And I think
In
when
the
we just hyper focus on one thing, we don't see all the different things we could be doing.
Exactly. The more I figure out what I want to do, it is like it comes from having the experiences of, oh, this is cool, but this is not what I want to do. And I just don't know if
Yeah.
there's not enough flexibility right now. And maybe there will be, but once I graduate college, but right now I don't see it to like have the opportunities to switch and try this and try that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I think it's a very hard thing when you commit to something and you're making a certain salary, then you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can never leave this because how am I going to redo how am I going to replicate
Yeah.
that? How am I going to figure out that salary?" But I think you have to, like, not just shut down the idea. I think you have to take a look at what's out there and see what the possibilities are, because there are definitely other jobs within a field that you would love that you could make the same salary in. You just
Yeah.
have to look for them. And it's not going to be like, oh, it's going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be something that you have to kind of persevere through. But if you're unhappy with something, you have to figure out how to make a change.
Yes. 100%.
Okay, so let's talk about a few more things. We talked about money. We kind of talked about taxes a little bit. I mean, taxes is like, I think that was one of the funny things. Maybe
Don't
we
have to
really
do
didn't
that.
talk about it yet, but the idea, first of all, filing your tax return, but the idea of that when you're making $10 an hour, that you're not really making $10 an
Dude, it
hour.
sucks. I'm paying
I knew
three
you were going to
different
say that.
taxes right now. No, it's kind of crazy because I'm making barely above minimum wage in New York. And I say this like New York's minimum wage is really high, and I'm lucky to be making this. And in the end of the day, like I'm supported. So the money that I'm making is my fun money and my whatever money. But I am paying way too much in taxes, in my personal opinion, because I
Tell the
just like,
government.
but can you imagine a minimum wage worker that's like making a dollar less than me essentially and has to pay the same amount in taxes, but also go home and feed their entire family at the end
Yeah,
of the day?
that's why
Like,
there's so
I'm
many
paying
issues.
city, state, and federal tax, which is one
Yeah.
of the reasons I want to move out of New York because there should not be a city and a state tax
Okay, that's for a different
for
that's for a
my
different show. That's
yeah
for a
for
different
my
show.
yeah yeah yeah
Yeah, yeah.
my income range. Like,
But
man,
yeah, I think I mean, it makes you realize how hard it is to raise a
yeah,
family, and how when you're making minimum wage, you look around the country and you see that how low minimum wage is in certain places, and even when it's higher, how hard it is to raise a family on that. I mean, it's near
it's
impossible, and that's why the
impossible.
level of poverty is high, because
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, you have to have
right.
you have to have double earners to be able
Yeah.
to survive when you're making minimum wage to be able to raise a family. Okay, so that's taxes. Health insurance, you
I don't
wouldn't
have
even
to
know where
think
to
about that
start,
till I'm
right?
25.
Yeah, so I mean, we take care of all that stuff, but you've learned
And
how to make
my
appointments, which I think is really
oh
important.
yeah, but I was
Understand,
thinking about this. I've been going to my own doctor's appointments since I was 16 though.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you had a health issue, right? I mean,
Yeah,
but for
so I
most
just kind of like,
people, they
oh
don't,
yeah,
some people haven't gone to a doctor like maybe as a
ever.
child and then don't go because
Yeah,
it costs
but me
money.
I think the reason I'm so familiar with it is because I have like a health issue, and I know the questions to ask regardless. Because I just had an appointment the other day. I know the questions to ask because of my health condition. Um, so I don't know if I would be the same in terms of like health if I didn't or wasn't like a sick kid, I guess.
Right. Yeah, if you hadn't experienced those things.
Yeah.
Um, okay, cooking. So we kind of touched on it, but the idea of having to cook everything for yourself or your roommates or however you do it
Yeah.
every day, it's a lot of work, right? I mean, you have
Yeah.
to think about meal planning and you have to make sure you have the ingredients. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot to it that we people take for granted and like, okay, where's my dinner? Well, no. There's a lot to
No.
it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I've become really good at budget shopping for groceries. I buy on sale. I buy name brand. I mean generic. Whoa. Um, like,
Don't say name brand.
and I make sure one of the things I try really hard and I'm not the best at is make sure that I buy things that I'm going to use because you'll
Mm.
spend money on something because you want it in the store and then it's gonna sit there and it's gonna rot and then you're gonna be like, fuck. Oh, but that money doesn't count. But it did count because it came out of your budget back then and you never used it.
Yeah, so I told you what I did yesterday, 2 days ago. I had radishes and green beans in the house, and they were going to go bad because Rob was out of town, and so I'm not going to eat vegetables by
Yeah.
myself. I mean, hello,
Fair enough, honestly.
and I know. So I was like, I'll just pickle them, and I felt like you because I know that's what you do when you
Oh
things are about
yeah.
to go rot. Things are about to rot. You're like, oh, I'll pickle them.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
what I did. I
easy.
pickled,
And I
and
eat
they're
a lot of pickles.
delicious, and they're
Yep.
delicious. Yeah. So like. But it's funny, that's like an adult thing to say, oh, not just throw it away. Let me figure out how I can repurpose it.
Yeah. And I think the cooking that is most practical to learn isn't how to be like this exquisite French chef or like art de cuisine. It's how to make a meal that could fill you up with like the five things you have in your fridge right now.
Yeah. And that's
And
actually really hard.
I have gotten really good at that.
Yeah.
It might
It's
not
hard
taste
to
good to anyone else, but it tastes good to me. So,
I'm sure it does taste good. I've had your cooking. You're a good cook. But yeah, I think that being able to look in your pantry and say, okay, I'm not going to go spend more money at the store. Let me figure out what I can make with this and creating a meal out of it. Like that's an impressive skill, honestly. And
mhm.
it's something that takes time to make it happen because it's not something that we teach, right?
I
It's
agree.
just not, you know. Um, your your grandmother, dad's mom was really, your dad's mom was really good at that. She would I would look at her pantry and I'm like, there's like five things in there, and all of a sudden she'd create this amazing meal out of it. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about that.
It's very
So,
important.
laundry, another thing that's a big pain in the ass.
Dude, I suck at laundry. And it's like, yeah, what do you mean you suck at laundry? You never do it? No, I do it like once a week. Sometimes I push it a little longer, like 1.5 weeks. But I am not good at getting the stains out. You and grandma are like exquisite. And yes, I use all the sprays and I use the soaps. I'm still not good at it.
It's taking the time. You got to scrub, 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 and the oil
I
stains.
think
It's that special bar of soap.
I'm saying I think now, I doubt this will happen. When I have my own laundry room slash like just like laundry in unit, which I think is like a thing normally outside of New York.
Yeah,
I don't really
a lot of
know.
places have apartments with
Yeah, like well,
laundry
it's
in the
just like
yeah
cheaper to have laundry in unit.
yeah
Then I'll be like good and spending the time and looking through all that. But when I'm in the laundry room in the basement, it's a fight
yeah
for whatever machine is open.
right yeah.
Throw it in there,
I hear
pay
you.
ridiculous amounts of money because it costs me so like oh whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
That's something that you learn over time. I
that's
mean, I
actually
wasn't.
one of the skills they taught us in life management or
Oh,
life.
really?
Yeah,
Life
was that?
skills, life
Yeah, it was.
life skills. Yeah, it's called a life skills course. Yeah,
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 it was how to do laundry because there were. I mean, granted, like I didn't have to do my laundry in high school. I knew how to, but there were kids that did not know how at all, and it's not as hard as it appears. It's actually not hard at all. You get the Tide Pod, you throw it in, you press start.
okay. But you know what's really funny?
But
Can we make one joke about your dad?
yeah, sure, one.
Yeah, okay, one. So, I don't remember when this was. Not too long ago, like within the last couple of years, he
Oh,
went to
that's
do
funny.
laundry and he put the Tide Pod in the drawer. I'm like,
Yeah,
no. I
people
was like, you
did that
can't
though my
do that.
freshman year of college, and they would just ruin the machines.
Yeah, I was like, that just gums it up. Like, there's not
Yeah,
enough water to dissolve it there. You got to put it. He's like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
but the best thing to
Sorry,
know
Rob.
is
I just
that
had to say that because other people may have experienced that. I want to make sure they understand you put the Tide Pod into the actual machine, not
into
in
the
the drawer.
machine. but detergent is cheaper and it works better.
Yeah, I'm struggling with my machine right now, but that's another story. Okay. We got to get through a couple more things before
Okay.
we end. We talked about how to make a phone call. That's key.
How to
How to
schedule.
schedule an appointment. Key. Interpersonal skills. Things that like you have to learn how to interact with, and we did touch about on this a little bit, how to interact with different kinds of people, right? So you might have
Mhm.
friends from one group and then you have friends from a different group. And how do you make that all work? It's things that you never had to do before because when you were in high school, you had your little crew and that's who you
No,
hung
I
out
had to
with.
do that in high school.
Well, a lot of people don't. A lot of people
Yeah.
don't
I
choose
was like a
to.
Yeah, I was definitely a person that chose, and not to say like I was a drifter. I just got along with a lot of people.
Yeah, which is a good thing. But for
Yeah.
a lot of people, that's not the case. And so now they have to figure out how they can work with other people. Because again, going back to the whole thing of the golden rule, like, remember, you never know who you're going to run into in the future. You never know who's going to interview you for a
Or
job.
who knows who.
Yes. And you want to make sure that you keep those, first of all, be authentic, right?
Hmm.
Be yourself, but hopefully yourself isn't an asshole. But
Yeah.
make sure like you want to make sure that you have those that ability later to interact with other people that maybe you didn't find to be you weren't a huge fan of, but maybe now
Yeah.
you are. Like you never know how people are when people grow up, they're completely different from
Yep.
when they were in middle school or high school.
I think an important thing to like note here is the golden rule is so important because it's no longer an option in society to just like run away and start over because
No.
you're gonna like everyone knows everybody. I'm sorry to
Mm-hmm.
say there that connection is it like the seventh rule, maybe the three, but like everyone's connected to someone through the certain amount of
Mm-hmm.
people. It's so real.
Yeah. And I mean, true for you in this job. Like, tell the story about the person that
Oh yeah,
you.
my literal like work bestie, her older sister is like shares a best friend with my older sister. They like her high school that or her high school best friend and her college best friend. It's just like a weird connection. But can you imagine if I was like a menace to society and a complete asshole? And I would just
No,
like,
I can't imagine that actually.
well, yeah, but and then like, oh, you're working with her. Well, this is what you should know, which actually happened to my friend at another job. Untrue rumors, by the way.
Yeah.
But she was like, "Oh, you're friends with them." So yeah,
Yeah.
like keeping the even when you don't like someone, the smile on your face, or just I know it's hard to fake the smile, so just don't be rude.
Yeah. And again, I want people to be authentic. I think that's really important, but understanding if you don't if you don't care for someone, like you can still be kind. Try to find that one thing about them that you can connect with because I think there's always
Yeah.
something that you can find in common with somebody. Okay, and the last thing is creating structure when your parents aren't there to do it for you, right? Like when from the time you guys were little, did you brush your teeth? Did you take your shower? Are your shoes on the right feet? Like, did you
Yeah.
make your bed? We didn't really make beds that much, but all these kinds of things that there was structure. And so then all of a sudden that structure is gone and you have to figure out all that stuff for yourself. So you got to schedule it.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Scheduling your schedule right now, or mine as a college student, is different day to day. Even from like today, I showered at like 3 p.m. because I had a break from work. So I was like, oh, guess I'll get my shower in right now. But yeah, actually, the other day when Jack was in town, I was like, you know what, I should put on the door because I'd forgotten my meds the day before. And we used to have a sign, and I don't know if the sign is still there. It says
No, it's
remember
not there
meds
anymore. Yeah.
because Noah and I, we would both, I mean, Noah is different. You guys have him, but like I would forget my meds a lot in high school, and that like definitely affected my academic performance on some days. So, like that, even that's like a small example of the structure that you guys added to the home. Just like, oh, I was like, oh, I should write a sign on my door so I remember.
Yeah. And we all need signs. That's why I write things. That's why I have my lists because I'll forget things otherwise. Um, okay, what's your calendar say for today? Because we are over time.
I know. We often fool ourselves into thinking life is too much or that somehow we're just not equipped to handle the tougher
Hmm.
challenges. Yet, if you look back on your life, you'll see a litany of testing circumstances that you triumphed over. No matter how tough it gets, you got this both then and now and long into the future. It's a
It's
good one.
amazing how when you read these things, they really line up with the podcasts,
Yeah,
right?
they're also
Kind of
like, I love
crazy.
this calendar.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
whipped my ass into shape a little bit.
Yeah. That was a good calendar. Good purchase by mom,
Yeah,
by
good job,
me.
mom.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. Um, so we're ending because we are behind schedule. But thank you so much for joining us today on the Daughter Dearest podcast. We're going to be off next week, but we will see you in 2 weeks with a guest. And we are so excited for you to join us then. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.